Welcome to Life Stories, where today you'll meet a mother who gave everything and was left with nothing. What would you do if your own child treated you like a stranger at the most important moment of his life? No seat at the front, no words of thanks, not even a dance, just a cold meal and colder silence. But what came next wasn't tears. It was a reckoning. One decision, quiet, deliberate, set off a chain reaction that would shake everything he thought he owned: his comfort, his security, even his future. This isn't just a story about a wedding. It's about the moment a woman realizes she's not required to shrink to be loved, and what happens when she finally refuses to stay small. So settle in and stay until the end, because the final twist might just leave you breathless. Let's begin. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday in March, tucked between a credit card offer and a disconnection notice from the electric company. Heavy cream cardstock, gold embossing, elegant cursive. Mr. and Mrs. Charles Grant request the honor of your presence at the wedding of their daughter Vanessa to Jordan Bennett. I had to read it twice. My son was getting married, and I was learning about it the same way strangers do, by mail. No phone call, no visit, just a formal announcement dropped like a stone into the silence of my life. I set it on the kitchen counter beside the stack of past due bills and stared at it. Jordan hadn't called in weeks, but now, suddenly, there he was in my mailbox, not as my boy, not even as a man, but as someone else's groom. Vanessa. I'd met her twice. Once at a rushed brunch where she gave my thrift store jacket a once-over that made me want to crawl out of my own skin. The second time, she came to our apartment and asked if she could use the bathroom. She was in and out in 30 seconds, but long enough to see everything she needed to: the peeling linoleum, the cracked soap dish, the life I had carved out from scraps. Jordan was 28 now. Tech industry golden boy. Lived in a high-rise downtown where a month's rent could have covered my entire salary as a data entry clerk at an insurance agency. I'd raised him alone after his father disappeared when he was 7, worked 2 jobs for years, skipped meals more often than I admitted just to keep the lights on and his lunchbox full. And now he was marrying into the Grants, a family whose last name sounded like a bank, and all I got was a line at the bottom of an invitation. Black tie optional. I called him that night. "Hey, Mom," he said, voice distracted, the clack of a keyboard in the background. "You got the invite?" "I did. Congratulations, honey." "Yeah, thanks. Vanessa's thrilled." "When would be a good time for me to help with the planning? I'd love to be involved." A pause. "It's all taken care of. Vanessa's parents hired a planner." "I'm not talking about money," I said gently. I thought maybe I could help pick the flowers or go to a cake tasting or—" "Mom," he interrupted, sharper this time, "just show up. Wear something nice, but not too conservative. Vanessa's family's pretty traditional." Something nice, but not too me. Message received. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I knew what he meant. My clothes came from clearance racks. My purse had frayed straps. I smelled like detergent and public transportation. I didn't belong in his new world, but I would go anyway. I would sit quietly and clap when I was supposed to and smile through the ache. That's what mothers do. Over the next 3 months, I saved every spare dollar. I skipped dinners, walked to work instead of taking the bus, canceled my streaming services. By May, I had enough to buy a dress that didn't make me feel invisible. Emerald green. Clean lines. Modest, but elegant. I had my hair done professionally for the first time in years and bought heels that didn't pinch. The morning of the wedding, I looked in the mirror and didn't quite recognize the woman staring back. For a moment, I let myself imagine the look on Jordan's face when he saw me. Maybe a flicker of pride, maybe even gratitude. The country club in Napa Valley was everything I expected: sprawling lawns, sparkling fountains, luxury cars glinting in the California sun. My 2007 Honda Civic might as well have come from another planet. Inside, the lobby gleamed with marble and fresh orchids. I stood straighter, hoping no one noticed how tightly I clutched my purse. I spotted Jordan near the staircase, dressed in a tailored tuxedo, laughing at something Charles Grant said. He looked like he'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. Vanessa stood beside him in a gown that could have paid off my debt 3 times over. As I walked toward him, his eyes found mine, and for just a second his smile froze. Not with joy, with something closer to reluctance. "You made it," he said, his voice careful. "You look so handsome," I replied, adjusting his bow tie out of habit. He stepped back slightly. "Thanks. You look nice." That pause before nice left a small cut. "Catherine, right?" Charles extended a manicured hand. "Jordan's mother?" "That's me," I said, shaking his hand. "We've heard so much about you." His tone was polite, practiced. I knew a dismissal when I heard one. I drifted to the chapel alone. No one noticed. No one asked me to sit in the front row. The ceremony was picture perfect. Vanessa glowed. Jordan's vows were eloquent, confident. The kind of words you say when your life is perfectly curated. I watched the boy I raised disappear into a version of himself that had no use for the woman who scraped her knees to hold him up. At the reception, I was seated at a table near the kitchen, surrounded by strangers. The meal arrived late. Cold salmon, mushy asparagus, and congealed potatoes. I ate in silence, pretending it didn't sting. Then I heard Jordan's voice rise above the music as he joked, just loud enough. "They finally brought my mom her food. She's used to eating what life leaves behind." People laughed. Vanessa's laugh was like broken glass. I smiled, and in that smile was the collapse of an entire era, not a dramatic shatter, a quiet, irreversible shift. That night, I went home and poured a glass of wine from a bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. I opened my laptop, and I wrote an email that would end something sacred and begin something entirely unknown. Have you ever loved someone so much you forgot to ask if they loved you back? What would you do if the person you sacrificed everything for laughed at your hunger? By dawn, the email had been sent, and by the end of the week, I was planning my escape, not from my life, but from the lie I had mistaken for love. The email was not written in anger. It was written in the hush that comes after the storm, when all that remains is truth. I didn't use words to wound, though they did, but to release myself from the ache of expectation. I told Jordan the money was gone, the support severed, the house being sold. I told him the most painful truth of all, that I had taught him to treat me as an afterthought by never requiring anything more. I hit send at 3:47 a.m., took a sip of the wine I had saved for better days, and began sketching the outline of a life that might finally belong to me. Jordan's response arrived 3 days later. "Mom, what the hell is this?" he wrote. "Are you having some kind of breakdown?" The words were clumsy, defensive, stripped of the elegance he'd reserved for toasts and vows. He said I'd misunderstood, that it had been a joke, that everyone laughed. "Don't be so sensitive," he wrote, as if being gutted in public was a matter of temperament. He called it a phase. He offered therapy. He suggested I might be lonely. He never said he was sorry. I didn't reply. That silence did more than any rebuke ever could. By Friday, I had changed my number. On Sunday, he emailed again, shorter, angrier. "Pick up your phone. You can't just cut me out of my inheritance. I talked to a lawyer. You don't get to do this." There it was, the assumption revealed in its full and ugly form. My love, my labor, my house, all seen as his by right, not gift. It was never inheritance. It was mine. A month later, the house sold, $355,000 in a cash offer that closed in under 30 days. I packed quietly, deliberately. No nostalgia, no lingering glances. I'd spent decades clinging to memories like lifeboats. Now I folded them into cardboard boxes and let the tide carry them away. I moved to Savannah, rented a modest one-bedroom near the river, Rye, and took a part-time job at a local bookstore owned by a woman named Rita, who hired me without pretense or pity. "You seem like someone who understands why books matter," she'd said, her hands ink-stained, her smile honest. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. The days passed gently. I walked cobbled streets shaded by live oaks and Spanish moss. I read poetry in cafes. I went to the farmer's market. I stopped asking the mirror for permission to exist. I was not healing. I was discovering. There was a difference, and then Barbara showed up. It was late afternoon when she knocked. I saw her through the peephole, immaculate as always, standing like a news anchor about to break a difficult story. I opened the door without smiling. "Catherine," she said, "may I come in?" I let her. Not out of kindness, but curiosity. She took in the half-packed boxes, the worn floorboards, the lack of apology. I offered her coffee. She accepted with a tight nod. I didn't know, she began, cupping the chipped mug like it was beneath her fingertips, that Jordan was financially dependent on you. You do now. If I'd known, things would have been different. I didn't bother to respond. She wasn't here to confess. She was here to negotiate. There are consequences to what you've done, she said. He lost his apartment. His credit is a mess. My parents are asking questions. I sipped my coffee. What do you want, Barbara? An arrangement, she said carefully. He can't rebuild everything overnight. He needs time. He needs something. I let the silence stretch until she filled it with the things she was too proud to name. You mean money? She looked away. It's not about money. It always was. Her eyes flickered then. He's your son. No, I said quietly. He's a man who happened to be my son. Barbara set down her mug. You're punishing him because he embarrassed you. I'm not punishing him, I replied. I'm simply done protecting him from the consequences of the man he's chosen to be. Her expression hardened. He's struggling. He needs your support. He had it for 28 years. Then she said something that should have cut me, but didn't. I think you're bitter because your life didn't turn out the way you wanted. No, I said, standing. I'm free because I finally stopped pretending it did. She left without another word, and still, I didn't cry. 2 months passed. I turned 57 in October and celebrated by taking a cooking class. I learned to make paella, spilled saffron rice all over my rented stovetop, and laughed until my sides ached. I read 5 novels. I planted basil in a windowsill box and watched it bloom like something sacred. The ache that had once lived under my ribs now felt like a scar, tender but closed. Then one Thursday, Rita handed me a phone message. A man called, she said. Said he was your son. Sounded desperate. I folded the slip of paper and threw it away without reading it. 2 days later, Jordan appeared in the bookstore. His suit was wrinkled, his shoes scuffed, his face drawn. He didn't look like the man from the wedding. He looked like a boy who'd been walking for miles in the wrong direction. Mom, he said, please, I need to talk to you. Can a relationship built on sacrifice ever survive the revelation that it was never truly mutual? As Jordan sat across from Laura, the past between them like a blade, neither of them could see that the next hour would reveal a truth neither was prepared to face. I met Jordan at the coffee shop next door to the bookstore. He was already seated at a corner table, 2 drinks between us. One was a latte, extra foam, my old favorite. I didn't touch it. He looked older somehow, not in years, but in the sag of his shoulders, the hesitation in his eyes. This wasn't the man who had laughed at me over salmon. This was someone cracked open. Still, I remained cautious. I had built a fragile peace inside myself, and I wasn't sure he deserved access to it. You look good, he said, voice hoarse. I feel good, I replied. He nodded, eyes flicking to my hands as if trying to read my mood in the stillness of my fingers. I came to apologize, not just for the wedding, for all of it, for being blind, for being selfish. I said nothing. I thought, he continued, that love was just there, that you would always be there, that I didn't have to think about you because you were solid, unshakable, like the foundation of a house. You lived in that house, I said evenly, but you never once asked who paid the mortgage. His mouth tightened. He looked down. I know, and I want to make things right. I've started therapy, real therapy, not the kind people do just to tick a box. I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm learning how much I didn't know. And what do you know now? I asked, not unkindly. That I took you for granted, that I hurt you, that I saw you as a fallback plan, not a person, and I hate that. I hate the person I was. There it was, the vulnerability. The thing I had waited for, hoped for, begged the universe to deliver through sleepless nights and sacrificed meals. But now that it was in front of me, it didn't move me the way I expected. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vindicated. I was tired. I appreciate your words, I said finally. But Jordan, an apology doesn't come with a reset button. I spent almost 3 decades loving you without boundaries. You spent just as long learning how to take without noticing. I know, but if you'll let me, I'd like to try, to earn a relationship with you. I studied him. He meant it. For the first time, there was no script in his voice, no smooth edges. He was raw and sincere. But I also knew this truth. Sincerity doesn't always fix what's been broken. Sometimes it only helps you name the pieces. I don't know if I want a relationship anymore, I said quietly. He froze. What do you mean? I mean, I've built a life I love, a quiet, small, real life. I go to sleep without waiting for a text. I wake up without hoping for an invitation. I've learned to fill my own glass without asking anyone to top it off. And I'm afraid that letting you back in would bring back the waiting, the longing. I won't make you wait again. You already have, I said, not bitter, just honest. He exhaled slowly. So this is it? I looked at him, truly looked. He was no longer my boy, and I was no longer just his mother. We were strangers carrying shared memories, walking the tightrope between guilt and forgiveness. I think, I said gently, that this is the part where we both stop trying to return to what we were. Maybe one day we can meet as new people. People who've earned each other. He nodded, a single weighted nod, and I saw something shift in him. Not defeat, acceptance. And that felt like a kind of grace. We sat in silence for a long moment, then I stood. I'm glad you came, I said. He stood too. Would it be all right if I reached out? Just someday? Someday, I replied. As I stepped out into the golden savanna sunlight, the air was warm and laced with river breeze. I didn't look back. A week later, a small envelope arrived at the bookstore. No name on the front, just for Laura. Inside was a card. No flowers, no design, just white paper and clean black ink. Mom, I may never deserve another chance, but I'm going to try to become someone who would. Thank you for teaching me how to be more than I was. I'll carry your strength like a map. Wherever I go, it will guide me. Love, Jordan. I placed the card in a box under my bed with old letters, passport stamps, and keepsakes from this new life. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't closure. But it was something rare and real. A beginning that didn't need a clear destination to be valuable. That night, I made myself a quiet dinner. Set the table for one, lit a candle, played a jazz record. I wasn't waiting for anyone. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone. How did this story make you feel? Did Laura make the right decision by choosing herself over repairing a broken bond? If you love this story, comment 100 below. Let us know what country you're watching from. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And thank you for being here with us at Life Stories.